On this Wednesday night, Canada's commitment to double its defense budget over the next decade.
We can no longer rely on our geography to protect us.
What needs to be done to make this a reality and where the money will come from. Setback or total obliteration, the doubts about what's left of Iran's nuclear capability. A friend's selflessness and ultimate sacrifice.
He actually saved me.
The man hailed as a hero after last week's deadly rockslide in Alberta. Plus, who's your daddy?
Then daddy has to sometimes use strong language.
Why is the head of NATO calling President Trump that?
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin tonight with news of a big commitment to defense spending. Members of NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, have agreed to substantially increase what they spend on security. All 32 countries are pledging to devote 5% of their economic output on defense by 2035. For Canada, that's roughly $150 billion a year, a sharp increase from the roughly $41 billion Canada spent in 2024.
We are protecting Canadians. We are protecting Canadians against new threats. I wish we didn't have to, but we do have to, and it is our core responsibility as government.
NATO allies meeting in The Hague were under intense pressure from the U.S. president to pay more for defense. Donald Trump is hailing this as a big win for Western civilization. How to pay for it? Well, Prime Minister Mark Carney has said selling Canada's critical minerals will help, and he says building infrastructure like railways and ports will count as part of the 5%, while also creating jobs. Mackenzie Gray is traveling with the Prime Minister and has our top story tonight.
It was a summit seemingly for one man.
Dear Donald, you made this change possible. Your leadership on this has already produced $1 trillion in extra spending from European allies.
The NATO Secretary General laying it on thick, showing his admiration for the U.S. president, who's threatened to leave NATO unless other allies paid up. And Wednesday, Europe and Canada did, agreeing to spend 5% of GDP on defense.
We were carrying much more than our fair share. It was quite unfair, actually. But this is a big win for Europe and for actually Western civilization.
The money split into two pots, 3.5% on traditional defense spending and 1.5% on defense-related infrastructure. The latter, government officials believe Canada already meets, but hitting the 3.5% level will require an additional $47 billion a year, cash the Prime Minister says will be phased in.
If you all of a sudden start spending a lot more money in one area, you can end up spending a lot more money on rising prices.
There are high-priced items on Canada's shopping list. Decisions on fighter jets and submarines are coming soon. But more cash for defense means less for domestic priorities. Carney has warned Canadians will need to make sacrifices to pay for the increase, but he won't say if it's cuts, taxes, or debt that will allow Canada to hit the 2035 deadline.
Those trade-offs happen towards the end of the decade into the next decade, and we will be much, much better informed.
The new financing and flattery from Carney in Europe leading to a new grand bargain at NATO. Spend 5% of GDP on defense, and the Americans will recommit to the alliance.
I left here differently. I left here saying that these people really love their countries. It's not a ripoff, and we're here to help them protect their country.
NATO will review the new 5% figure in 2029, after Trump is out of the White House. And a senior government official tells Global News, Donna, that Canada hopes to be able to rebalance the targets, to spend less on traditional defense, but more on defense-related infrastructure.
Okay, Mackenzie Gray in The Hague, thank you. The head of NATO continues to heap praise on President Trump. Today, he referred to him as Daddy.
Fighting each other. They've had it. They've had a big fight, like two kids in a schoolyard. You know, they fight like hell. You can't stop them. Let them fight for about 2-3 minutes. Then it's easier to stop them.
And then daddy has to sometimes use strong language.
You have to use strong language. Every once in a while, you have to use a certain word.
Later, Rutte was asked if he feels he has to flatter Trump in order to do business with him.
Isn't it a bit demeaning, and doesn't it make you look weak?
No, I don't think so. I think it's a bit of a question of taste, but I think he's a good friend. And when he is doing stuff which is forcing us to, for example, when it comes to making more investments, and when it comes to Iran, the fact that he took this decisive action, very targeted, to make sure that Iran would not be able to get its hands on a nuclear capability, I think he deserves all the praise.
Tonight, the CIA put out a statement saying a body of credible intelligence indicates Iran's nuclear program was severely damaged by American bombs, and it says the facility struck would take years to rebuild. That helps back up Trump's claim Iran's nuclear capability was completely obliterated. Jackson Proskow reports.
The fate of Iran's nuclear facilities is buried under rock and rubble.
Yes, our nuclear installations have been badly damaged.
We hear it was obliteration. It was a virtual obliteration.
At the NATO summit, U.S. President Donald Trump maintained the strikes he ordered had fully destroyed Iran's nuclear program. Israeli officials declared Iran's Fordo nuclear facility inoperable, suggesting the program had been set back by many years. That contradicts a preliminary U.S. intelligence assessment, which suggested a more minor setback of a few months.
We've collected additional intelligence. We've also spoken to people who have seen the site, and the site is obliterated. And we think everything nuclear is down there. They didn't take it out.
Whether that includes all of Iran's stockpile of highly enriched uranium is unknown. The International Atomic Energy Agency wants to get inspectors in, warning Iran likely has the capacity to restart the program.
What is clear is that in any case, the technological knowledge is there and the industrial capacity is there that no one can deny.
Trump is already savoring victory, saying he'll talk to Iran next week and may or may not sign a new nuclear agreement.
I don't care if I have an agreement or not.
As for the conflict between Israel and Iran, Trump believes the tenuous ceasefire he brokered will hold. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said there had been a great victory, saying the conflict had removed immediate existential threats.
We think it's over. I don't think they're going to be going back at each other.
Like the Israelis, Trump is seeking to portray the 12-day-long conflict as a success. He suggested it was the U.S. airstrikes on Iran's nuclear facilities that brought it all to an end. Donna?
Okay, Jackson Proskow in Washington, thanks. There is no similar optimism about Gaza. After more than 20 months of Israeli attacks, there is no peace there. 7 Israeli soldiers were killed in southern Gaza yesterday after an explosive device blew up their armored vehicle. And Gaza's health ministry says at least 79 Palestinians have been killed in the past 24 hours. That includes 33 people who were trying to access aid. Mike Armstrong reports with help from journalists on the ground in Gaza.
This is the aftermath of an Israeli strike on a fuel station in Gaza City. It was being used as a shelter when it was hit overnight. This man says 12 people were in the building. They've recovered the bodies of only 3. As the world fixated on Israel and Iran, more people died in Gaza than in both countries combined. But there is a feeling it has been ignored. This woman says the world no longer remembers the Gaza war. It's only concerned with the Iran issue. During just the 12 days of the Iran-Israel war, the Hamas-run health ministry in Gaza says more than 860 people died, and the war there has been going on for 615 days longer. This man says all eyes were on Iran, but hunger here got worse. The tragedy was forgotten. The displacement of Gazans has continued as well. The Israeli military dropped leaflets this week ordering people in several areas of northern Gaza to move south, likely meaning Israeli strikes against Hamas were in the works. There is no safety anywhere, this woman says. There is bombardment and humiliation everywhere.
I think great progress is being made on Gaza.
With a ceasefire between Iran and Israel, there is a push from international leaders for a ceasefire in Gaza. The French president is calling it a priority. The German chancellor says he's asked Israel outright what its goals are in Gaza. Now, one call for a ceasefire is coming from the Association of Relatives of the Israeli hostages held by Hamas. It says the people capable of reaching a ceasefire with Iran can also end the war in Gaza. Well, that may fall to Qatar. It was involved in the Iran-Israel talks, and it's been a mediator in the past in the Gaza war. It's working on putting together indirect talks between Israel and Hamas in the next few days. Donna?
All right, Mike Armstrong in Tel Aviv, thank you. In Kenya, anti-government protests have left at least 16 people dead. That's according to Amnesty International. Hundreds more are injured. Police fired tear gas and water cannon to disperse the crowds. Human rights groups say some protesters had gunshot wounds. The countrywide protests happened 1 year after 60 people died in huge demonstrations against a contentious tax plan. There's a new economic forecast for Canada, and it is predicting a modest recession later this year. Business consulting firm Deloitte Canada believes the economy will slow down, largely because of uncertainty about U.S. tariffs. And Gaviola looks at which sectors could be hit and what it could mean for interest rates.
A recession that's mild, not wild, in the cards for Canada. Just around the corner as U.S. tariffs on steel, aluminum, and some finished vehicles bite. And tariff uncertainty hammers businesses and households, taking aim at auto sector jobs.
There is some risk that we will see some of these job losses filter through to other parts of the economy. If people in one sector have lost their jobs, they're not necessarily eating out, spending on clothing as they usually would have.
Ontario and Quebec economies tied to trade and manufacturing to bear the brunt of it. Energy producers, Newfoundland and Labrador, Alberta and Saskatchewan, expected to lead growth. An uneven recession that mom and pop shops say they're already feeling. A survey of 150 small businesses shows 3/4 have already cut spending. 40% delayed hiring or put expansion plans on pause.
80% of the businesses we surveyed have already, braced for impact, done something to get ahead of this.
Smaller businesses have smaller cash cushions and maybe the proverbial canary in the coal mine for predicting a recession.
They're managing cash flows month to month or even week to week. So if revenues start to decline, it doesn't take very long before they start to struggle with their expenses.
Households have pulled back on spending too.
What we're seeing right now is weakness in food service, weakness in highly discretionary spend driven industries like hotels, spas, dance studios, country clubs.
Economic weakness that Deloitte and others see as the impetus for the central bank to lower interest rates this summer or fall.
We still think that there is room for the Bank of Canada to lower the policy rate. Not a lot. We have another 50 basis points or half a percentage point.
It's not all doom and gloom. Deloitte identifies federal spending and investment, the Buy Canadian movement, and an increase in domestic travel, so-called staycations, all helping to cushion the tariff blow. Donna?
Okay, Anne Gaviola in Toronto. Thank you. A tentative agreement has been reached between DHL and its employees. 2,100 workers at the logistics company were locked out 2.5 weeks ago. Unifor says its members have now reached a deal, though no details will be released until after a ratification vote. One man's haunting memories of the rock slide in Banff National Park. Coming up, how the mountain rained down on him and how his friend saved his life. That was a shocker. A lightning strike on a school in London, Ontario yesterday meant an elementary school graduation ceremony had to be put on hold. The fire department shared video of the lightning hitting the chimney of London South Collegiate. It caused structural damage, but no one was injured. The grade 8 students, their families and teachers had to leave the building, though. They continued the ceremony at a nearby school. A man who survived that terrible rock slide in Banff National Park is describing the harrowing moment it happened. He was badly injured, and the friend he was hiking with was one of 2 people who were killed. As Heather Yurix West reports, he says he owes his life to that friend.
It was supposed to be the trip of a lifetime for 2 friends exploring the country they now call home.
This was one of the things on our bucket list, to come to Calgary and enjoy the Banff Park.
But what began as a sunny hike along beautiful mountain paths turned suddenly tragic with the crack of a thundering sound.
It just looks like the mountain is like falling apart. I don't know. I saw a bunch of rocks, a bunch of big rocks like slamming the ground and rolling towards us, and I froze.
It was then Khaled Al-Gamal heard his friend's final words as he called out to run.
He actually saved me in that sense. He made me gain back my consciousness, and I started running.
But they could not both escape in time.
I just kept getting hit by a bunch of rocks, and At that point I was blacking out and then getting back consciousness.
When the slide finally stopped with a broken pelvis and shoulder, Khaled somehow managed to track back down.
My back was in so much pain at that point. I was barely walking, and once I reached the ground, I just kept screaming for help, and telling them my friend is up there.
El Gamal was transported by air ambulance to Calgary that day, but it would be the next morning before the body of his friend and housemate, 33-year-old Hamza Ben Hilal, would be found.
His death is very shocking. I didn't expect that at all. Grief and sorrow. Yeah, for days we don't sleep.
An international student studying in Surrey, BC, Hamza was from Morocco. His brother making the long journey to Canada now to help bring him back home.
It was just perfect. Always hand in his hand.
Forever remembered by his friend as a hero who died in a beautiful place he had come to love. Heather Urex West, Global News, Calgary.
Ahead, the Maine squeeze to win Canadian visitors back to the U.S.
Ignition and liftoff.
For the first time, India, Poland, and Hungary have launched astronauts to the International Space Station. The crew, led by a U.S. commander, lifted off from Florida for a 2-week mission chartered by the privately funded Axiom Space. The astronauts will conduct research on behalf of 31 nations. For Canadians who stick closer to home, some tough decisions are being made about where to travel. A lot of people have crossed America off the list. As Heidi Petracek reports, the governor of the state of Maine is on a mission to the Maritimes to woo back her neighbors.
Janet Mills came north with a big ask for Canadians. Don't be a stranger.
Because when you don't come to Maine, what you're damaging is not the folks in Washington, D.C. What you're harming and putting at risk are the small mom-and-pop motels, B&Bs.
New figures show Maine's tourism industry is being hammered. In May of 2024, there were more than 261,000 visits to Maine. This year, it's down by about 85,000, as nearly a third of those visitors stayed away.
We go back eons, and that relationship will be unchanged by some of the rhetoric in Washington.
The governor is in a tough spot between Canadians upset with Trump's rhetoric and policies and a president she's already been at odds with.
Maine is a small state. I don't believe it voted for Mr. Trump in the last election. And so there's a number of reasons that he's probably reluctant to listen to them.
A tense exchange between Mills and the president in February, likely another.
You're not getting any federal funding. See you in court.
And so the Democrat is trying to undo the damage of Trump's tariffs and 51st state talk, starting earlier this week in New Brunswick, where the premier acknowledged the important trade relationship, but reiterated.
The big picture is that tourism is not something that we can collaborate on right now.
It's going to go great.
Nova Scotia's premier also standing firm before his meeting with Mills Wednesday.
We need to see a trade deal. We need to see a change in the tone of the message at the highest level.
It's for both of our sakes.
Canadians may still need some convincing. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
A stunning upset in the race to become New York City's next mayor. 33-year-old New York State Legislature Zoran Mamdani, who promises free buses, free universal childcare, and a rent freeze, won the Democratic primary in the mayoral race. He defeated former New York State Governor Andrew Cuomo, who was trying to make a comeback after resigning in 2021 over a sexual harassment scandal. If elected this November, Mamdani would be the city's first Muslim and first Asian American mayor. He's expected to be the main challenger to current New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Next, a divided diaspora, how Iranian Canadians are coping with a fragile ceasefire and an uncertain future in their home country. The conflict between Iran and Israel has dredged up a lot of feelings among Iranian Canadians who fled the regime years ago, and it's raising deeper questions about identity and belonging. In one of Canada's largest Iranian communities, some say they're struggling not just with the headlines, but with each other. Neetu Garcha reports on a diaspora divided.
Metro Vancouver's North Shore is home to one of Canada's largest Iranian communities. Many are feeling the impact of the latest violence in personal and complex ways.
We are very much polarized. People are going through a lot of emotions.
This psychotherapist says many of her Persian and Iranian clients are feeling a combination of fear for loved ones, memories of forced migration, and renewed questions of identity.
The fear and anxiety over what is next is exhausting people.
And Poran Poregbal herself is among those who, as a refugee, left Iran, where she was born and raised.
7 months pregnant, I left Iran with the fear of what's going to happen, the same fear that we have had today. 37 years later, what's going to happen? We don't know.
Poregbal says the diaspora is also divided.
Many Iranians are happy that this regime is being targeted. However, we are also concerned about the country being bombarded. And this is causing a lot of problems. This is causing a lot of isolation.
A lot of people, they're hopeful that this would be a turning point and it can weaken the regime in a way that would bring about positive change. I don't know what to think.
Community activist Amir Bojakian says many are dealing with anxiety too.
The fact that we are a community that has to navigate through nuances and gray areas for the past 4 decades or so is something that takes a toll on people.
Poregbal says finding connection in community groups is critical, as is staying hopeful for peace while fostering empathy, especially in the younger generation. Neetu Garcha, Global News, West Vancouver, BC.
That is Global National for this Wednesday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Your Canada showcases Chilliwack, BC, Matlock, Manitoba, and Selwyn, Ontario. Please keep them coming. Send your pictures of Canadian pride to Global National at globalnews.ca. And thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.